Yeah, that's what
Are we live?
a lot of people have.
All right.
All right, are we ready to go?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
We're getting cool stuff.
I will call this meeting of the Clinton County Area Plan Commission to order for Tuesday, September 6, 2022. Roll call of the members, please.
Jordan Brewer is absent. Dan Sheets.
Here.
Clark Beard.
Here.
Walt Minnick.
Here.
Andy Bailey is absent. Mike Gibbons.
Here.
And then staff Liz Stitzel and Kat Bell are present, as well as attorney Jay Moore.
All right, thank you.
Who did I call that was missing? I thought I was missing one. Grant.
Yes, here.
Well, you're not on my list.
You are now.
But you are here. Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, next order of business is the approval from minutes from the June 7th meeting, 2022.
Motion to approve the June 7th minutes as written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Who was my, could you repeat that motion?
Clark
I made
and
the
Mike.
motion.
Second.
Clark and
All right,
Roll call.
did you want a roll call or just
Oh.
a voice?
Voice. What do you want?
voice be fine.
Okay.
All in favor of approval of the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Is there any old business?
Special. Did you want to, you approved June's, did you want to also approve July's, the special meeting minutes?
I do not have those.
Here, I'll
have not.
pass it down there, they were for appointing, Grant to the BCA.
Oh,
That was pretty
yeah,
much
so
all
we
we did
can
that
say-
meeting.
Okay.
You would.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the June meeting, or July 22nd meeting,
Nobody needs it.
appointing Grant to the board?
I move we approve the minutes as written.
I'll second that.
Mike and Walt?
Voice or roll?
Oh, voice, I'm sorry. I don't do this.
You're out of
More.
practice.
All in favor of approving the minutes from the July meeting signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries.
And there is no old business to answer your earlier question.
All right, very good, thank you. Moving on to our public hearings, we have one tonight, application CC 2022, docket 810, docket 11-22-RZ. It's a petition of Christine Bocock of Lebanon to rezone a piece of property in the R3 medium-density residential area in the town of Kirkland to central business zoning. And I think we're just about ready. Other than for the audience, anyone wishing to discuss this with the board or give their views, we'll ask you to come to the podium so that this is being broadcast live on YouTube. So we want to be able to hear you clearly, anything that you have to say. Thank you. All right, Liz.
Yes, so as you noted, this is the application of Christine Bocock, and I guess I'm going to pause a moment before I get into the staff report because we have some newer members that haven't seen rezonings. So rezonings are a little bit different than subdivisions in that the Area Plan Commission is not the final deciding body. You give a recommendation and only a recommendation to the legislative body, in this case, the Town Board of Kirkland, Indiana. You can recommend either favorably, unfavorably, or you can send a neutral recommendation, which rarely happens, but it is your right to do if you can't agree, and so you just want to pass it on and let them figure it out on their end. They then have the ultimate power to decide whether the rezoning is adopted or not adopted. They are not bound in either direction by this board's ruling. Our job is to look at the comprehensive plan and the planning standards and to give the recommendation based just on that. State law allows the legislative body to look at literally anything they want to look at, which we cannot do. We just have to look at that one piece. So anyway, just so you're aware of how that fits. So with that in mind, this is a request to rezone some land from the R3 medium density residential zoning district to the B2 central business zoning district in the town of Kirkland. It is surrounded by R3 medium density residential ground, and it sits a block from the B2 downtown business district. This site consists of a single parcel. It's on the east side of South Pike Street between East Madison Street and East Monroe Street in the town of Kirkland. And the petitioner would like to rezone it so they can operate a reception hall at a former church structure that still sits on the petition site and would be reused for a proposed wedding chapel or reception hall. So I will note, as an area plan commission, we can't do use variances. These are actually the exact situations that those are supposed to be rarely used for, where you have an old existing structure that cannot be used in modern times the way that the district is, but you have a reuse that would maintain it and make it work. So in our case, our only option is rezoning. We don't have any other way to work with that. So that's why you're seeing this as a rezoning request as opposed to some other form of approval before the BZA. So there's a map there on the first page that shows you the site. On the second page, you've got some pictures of this church. This church has had long-term maintenance issues and has been blighted for a significant number of years. We've had tons of complaints over the years just about things not being maintained, people trespassing, water problems, paint, all different stuff, general disrepair. And since it's a large structure and not suitable as a house, it's just kind of sat there and deteriorated. You can kind of see in the pictures that it's not currently in premium condition. So there's 5 criteria that the Plan Commission and the Kirkland Town Board should pay reasonable regard to as you evaluate the rezoning request that's specified according to section 201.01C of the Unified Development Ordinance. And those criteria are as follows. First, the most recently adopted comprehensive plan. So the town of Kirkland future land use map in the 2012 Clinton County Comprehensive Plan designates this area for residential use. However, Kirkland has experienced substantial commercial growth since the plan is written. And the comp plan states under community heritage and quality of life that community heritage in Kirkland includes the recognition of historical and cultural resources within the town. Kirkland has an interesting history as a Michigan Road community. It should be promoted within that Michigan Road Heritage Corridor across Indiana. And since the petition site has a former church that was built in 1900, according to tax records, it would be reused as a wedding chapel and reception hall. And it's located 2 blocks east off the historical corridor. It does appear to mesh with the plan of Kirkland in that you would be preserving that historical structure by giving it a reuse for it to be kept. And then additionally, I would note a church is a permitted use in most zoning districts or a special exception use. In fact, because of religious rules on the federal and the state level, churches can locate nearly anywhere. So this one, of course, predated zoning, but since it's been affected with blight in recent years, reusing it would provide a way to preserve it and to repair it as a historical structure and keep it within Kirkland. 2, current conditions and the character of the structure and uses in each district. So the requested B2 zoning is less intense than any other business zoning district and would be an asset in this location given the church building is already in existence on the site. It would be a positive development in character to reuse the distinctive older building instead of allowing it to continue to gradually fall apart. According to the area plan records, there was in 2013 some attempt to renovate the structure for residential use, but it was never completed. That's not uncommon with old churches because there's a tremendous expense involved in trying to convert them from one use to the other, and they're a massive structure to maintain for the average household budget. So if this structure is renovated either way, and this for a commercial use, or if it remained R3 and was residential, it has to meet required current building codes. So the applicant does understand that they will have to go through the process of making sure that it is safe and maintained and brought up to code for a reception hall use. 3, the most desirable use for which the land in each district is adapted. So the ground is zoned residential, but being a former church, which is permitted in residential districts, these plans for proposed use will be a less intense commercial use. In fact, very similar to what a church would have, in that you'll have groups of people gathering, mostly on weekends, but periodically. Where we have others of these in the county, usually you see more activity on weekends. You might see like a small graduation gathering or birthday party during the week, but very similar to a church in that way. And it would give it a way to use and occupy the old structure, which would seem to be desirable for the conservation of property values through the jurisdiction. So this commercial building already exists. It is in disrepair. The proposed plan for a new use would renovate the building. And renovating the building should have a positive effect on nearby values versus allowing it to continue to be vacant and take water damage and fall apart in pieces until such time as it collapses. And 5, responsible growth and development. Placing more businesses in Kirkland, particularly one that would include recognition of the historical and cultural atmosphere that Kirkland has to offer, would be a positive reuse for the petition site. So consequently, staff recommends approval and to favorably certify the rezoning application to the Kirkland Town Board. As far as I'm aware, and Kat can correct me if I'm wrong, we have not received any contact, positive or negative, from anybody ahead of this meeting tonight. I believe you received copies of the staff report, and the work to be done would be primarily interior, and then making the outside look nice, so photographs and things, would work. I believe the applicants are here, so if there's questions about their plans, you can address that.
All right, thank you, Liz. Would the applicant like to come forward and tell us about your project?
So we were thinking, as far as the budget, I mean, it's gonna take a lot of money. So we were going to, at least we had budgeted about $100,000 just to put into the building. To put all new plumbing, all new electrical, a kitchen for like small catering jobs and for the events. Also for the outside to be, we're gonna try to get it all painted real nice and make it kind of look exactly the way that it is, but just all nice and white and bright and beautiful. So that's as far as our budget. We'd like to stay at 100,000, but it probably will be more than that, so.
Okay, anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I just, this is just a place when we walked in and we saw that it was available. Both of my husband and his partner, his business partner, who are in construction, they were considering making that into like a residential, like apartments and to rent it out. But when I walked in, and I'm in the catering restaurant business, and so I saw it as this beautiful sanctuary that could, this building that could be put right back to its glory, and really be in the community, just something when people drive by, they're like, wow, look how beautiful this building is, because it is a grand building. And so I talked them, I said, this has to be changed back to beauty. So I don't want to do anything really big, but it would be nice to do small events and have fun and celebrate people's lives and their events that they have. So, and I love smaller communities and towns. So that's really all I have.
All right, well, thank you.
Welcome.
Would anybody else like to speak on this project? Please step up to the microphone.
So I'm Kendra. I live at 302 East Madison, so I live directly across the street from where the church is and between the overflow parking lot for the current KCC church. And potentially, the biggest issue here is there is no parking at the building that they purchased. There's nowhere to park. If this is going to become an event space, where is the proposed parking? Because I don't know if that's been addressed or what the issues are. Because if it's the church overflow lot, that means the only way to get to their event is through my yard. There's no other way. And I am not okay with this. No one has spoken to me or come to me about anything to do with this. It becomes a liability issue for me. It becomes an issue of my sidewalks need to be maintained. It becomes who is in control of snow removal and doing all of these things. And I'm all for the church being renovated and it being nice, but where is parking? Because there's no parking there. This is my biggest issue with it.
All right, very good, thank you. Where are you located exactly? Can you show me on this map here?
This morning. This is standing at my front porch, looking at the church.
Okay, so the church is right here,
Correct, that's me right there.
so you're right here.
Yes, on the corner of Pike and Madison. And if the potential parking, it's that next lot behind me. So I own the double lots there, and then these two are the overflow parking. And then
Okay.
I own an easement in that overflow parking, but it's only like 3 or 4 feet.
That one right there,
Yep,
maybe?
that easement is mine. And then, so that overflow parking, the only way to get there is through sidewalks through my yard.
That currently, is that a parking area that was part of this church?
No, it is the parking for the KCC, it's their overflow lot.
Okay,
There's another church that's a block down.
Yes,
on
I
the
live
other
between two
side,
churches.
So that parking is associated with that church and used as overflow. And then the sidewalk in question is actually in the road right of way. It is a public sidewalk, not a private sidewalk, just to distinguish. But the concern is understood. People
The
are
problem
walking
there
past.
is though, is that there is a retaining wall and the city will not even attempt to fix the sidewalk until I deal with the retaining wall. So it does become a liability issue. Like if someone were to hurt themselves right now, like it is my issue right now. And then again, the easement is mine, so have to be like denoted parking wise.
do you have anything to say about the parking issue?
So, we did measure behind
Up to the microphone, please.
We could get, I believe with Cat, it's a smaller, for like 50 people, right around there. And we had talked about how many parking spaces that I needed. And if we have, like in the back part of it, if we take out some of the, there's like a handicap, we're gonna take all that out and put handicap in the back, but there'll be like 9 parking spaces in the back, 3 up in the front, and a couple on the road. Even if they park a block away, like basically where the other businesses are, that's all that we really needed was about like 17 parking spaces total to be able to be rezoned. So I did speak with the pastor of the Christian church, and they were worried about liability, which I have insurance. And they said that if anything happened in the other location, that it would be like location one is the church or the chapel, the other one would be the parking lot. And that if anything ever happened, that I would have insurance that would cover any kind of liability.
Okay,
So I've done my research on that.
and,
I would also note, just for the sake of the question on the rezoning, the B2 district has no parking requirement, although I would expect the town to have some conversation about what's happening with parking as they consider the case, because like, it's not as bad as Rossville, but it's the same kind of thing when you have a bunch of people parking, you have to go somewhere. You know, so you have to figure out what you're gonna do with them. So Rossville has these same kinds of conversations as they've added apartments and businesses on the second tier. And you start to figure out where things going, but the zoning district itself, does not require off-street parking, although she is looking at providing some because she's looking at how she, you know, we made her aware of the fact that we also have a concern to make sure that someone's thought through and we don't have cars ending up in weird places, you know.
would anyone else like to speak?
Hi, my name is Sharon Klingy, and I live at 302 East Madison, and exactly what she said. 306. Yeah, I meant to say, I live right down from, yeah, 306. I haven't lived there that long, and that's my second residence, so I'm not familiar with what all goes on, but I just had the same concerns. I like the idea of fixing up the church, but that is a one-sided parking street, so already you're short on parking spaces, so you know they're gonna park right along there, and then, you know, kids running out in between cars or something. I wasn't sure what was gonna happen with all that, so, that was just my concern as well. And I guess they'll, maybe can walk down the alley and, but it's pretty rough. And, I can imagine with their little dainty heels,
And the town is not maintaining alleys.
So
No.
Maintaining the alley.
no, I had to pay to have that alley, cleaned out so I could get my car out, this year, so that was just my.
Thank you very much.
Let me throw something in here, being, the town council took their, project, and we looked at the thing. This church is set there for 35, 40 years and not being used. The building has dilapidated to some degree, not terribly by any means. It's fixable. The bridge, which is the youth center there, had originally bought it, and they could not get any funding or grants to finish what they had started. So this is why they put it on the market, and these people bought it. They have a great idea. Like I said, this church is set for so many years and not been used. The town council thought this was a great project. We understand, and we had brought up the issue about the parking, and they're addressing that. They haven't finalized it, but they're addressing it with the church. And, we just think it's a great thing for the community. It's 2 blocks off of 421 and stuff. So this is why we sent them to this after they had come to us, and we said, hey, present it and we'll go from there.
Sounds like everybody's pretty excited about seeing it happen. They just, maybe this will be a chance to get some dialogue going and get
Yeah.
something figured out on the parking.
It's gonna, if you let it go here in a few years, it's gonna dilapidate, it's gonna degrade the community, the surrounding area, your house values are gonna go like that. It's one of those things.
Yes, ma'am.
My other question is there's a 9P noise ordinance here. So if we're talking like parties on the weekend and things, and although we keep referring to this as it's going to be used as a church, like, will there be alcohol involved? Because then again, you have people where they're parking. If this is a wedding reception, the likelihood is there will be more than 17 cars. I mean, wedding receptions are not that small. Like, there's going to be. So these are the questions. Yeah. And again, this is literally across the street from me. And if there's access into this, like, from all sides, which I believe they are proposing for people to be able to come and go, like, there's a 9P noise ordinance that is strongly enforced for other businesses in the town. So how is that being addressed in? And again, like, is this a church, or will there be drinking at this location? Because this poses an issue. The drinking at the other locations is all up in the residential, or not the residential area, in the business area. The VFW, Booker's, like the liquor store, those are all strictly in the commercial district, not in the residential district. And that becomes an issue. Like, this place is surrounded by houses. The house directly behind it has a special needs child who is not good with recognizing cars and traffic and things like that. Like, these are issues. So, I mean, I think that they need to be thought about and addressed.
Couple points of guidance for the board. First off, when you consider a zoning district, well, what's happening with the use is relevant. You think about all uses as a whole. So, if the town of Kirkland enforces a noise ordinance, they're gonna have to comply with it the same as any other use in the B2 district, or the residential district would have to comply with it. It's not a zoning issue. Secondly, the number of people in the building will not be limitless. It sounds like, from what I've been told by staff and hearing, that we're expecting that capacity to be around 50, similar to the Legion conversion to a reception hall in Colfax that's sitting down about the same distance off the main downtown. That was another reuse where you had a building falling apart, and we find there locally it ends up being mostly birthday parties and family receptions and things like that, but they have a capacity. They can't just go, we're gonna bring in 700 people because we feel like it. And that's set by the state, and then, it's reflected on the certificate of occupancy once it's complete. So, no, I haven't been in the building. I don't have a state approval yet because they won't start on that unless they have permission to start the use. But I guess I just wanna make sure everyone understands that, when you start a reception hall, you can't just decide spur of the moment you're gonna bring in a 7,000 person party. Like, there's a limit. If you exceed it, it is a zoning issue and it's an enforcement issue. Your zoning district isn't gonna protect you, because you can have issues with, people getting out in a fire, or, these kinds of things. You worry about if buildings are over capacity, bad things happen. That's more of a building code problem than a zoning problem, but our office handles both. So I guess my point would be, whatever that building's capacity is,
That's the limit.
that's what it's gonna be. There is no like, this building can have 50 people in it, but today we're bringing in 700 and parking cars up and
No.
down every street in Kirkland. That would result in a pretty strong fine and a citation and major issues, and I would imagine Kirkland would have concerns about that at all. 700 is a big number, but even 100 would be a problem.
Oh, yeah.
If it's 50, 50's the cap. If it's 35, 35's the cap. If it's 70, 70's the cap. And when they go through the use approval, and permitting, then what that capacity is locked in, in that review. Once they get their plans and the square footage, there's calculations for that. Those aren't made up spur of the moment. Those are codified into Indiana law and based off fire, escape and rules for how thickly you can pack people in different types of structures. So, I just want to be clear on that. That said, of course, back to the parking issue and crowds, I don't know anything as far as the alcohol intent. I do know you have to have an alcohol license in order to serve alcohol. I don't know if there's any available in Kirkland or not. The applicant
Yeah,
may
you-
know more.
You
Okay,
get-
so
you'll
that, I
have
think
to.
we'd have to ask the applicant on,
You'll have
but
to.
as far as the noise and whether or not the building had a limitless capacity for large parties, those things are gonna be town of Kirkland enforcement, or they're gonna be, capped at whatever number is appropriate to the structure.
Yeah.
So,
Want to go
Well,
up?
they're just, the Legion's just a block away, they have a restriction on how many people are allowed in the building,
pretty much every building does,
so,
including houses, so it's,
and I'm sure they serve a whole lot more alcohol than ever be served at this place,
I think
By
you'd have to
a long
ask the
shot.
applicant on the alcohol. I'm not sure what their intentions are on that.
I do plan on filing.
Yeah, you have to get a license of the BCE, and
Like a little information on a broader
Beverage
question.
Association.
What is allowed in a B2? Some examples, please.
Yeah, I can read through some examples of what's permitted in B2 districts, yeah. Parking lot by special exception, true, but let me try to be a little more helpful than that. Just a moment. So I'm just gonna read off some possible uses in B2. Now, some of these are also allowed, daycares, which are also allowed in R3, so there's not really any difference there. Woodworking, general retail, like, you picture a little shop that sells clothing or widgets, antiques, I guess it's Kirkland, a shop that sells antiques might be the thing to picture. Tailoring and dressmaking, interior decorating, professional services and offices, like a doctor or a dentist is probably the most common thing we see in that category, but, it could be, like we have, in Frankfurt, we have a couple like coffee shop, not copy, like you would go to print something, those are another type of professional office. I do know you cannot have your automobile uses by right in B2, it's restrictive on that. Warehouses are not permitted, let's see, recreational stuff. A school of dance is a permitted use, indoor, like miniature golf courses, lodges and fraternal organizations, like an Eagles or a Legion, be something, I always tell people, picture what would be in your downtown areas of small towns, and most of those native uses are gonna be something that there's a way to work with. An indoor theater, have one of those anywhere in Clinton County, but Tipton does in their downtown. If move over in the next county. Museums and art galleries, are permitted, trying to look through here,
I think that gives me a general idea of what.
yeah, I mean,
what
there's
you're
some
thinking
odd
about.
ones, like an ice skating rink, but I would argue that's highly unlikely given the size of the lot, because you may be tripping on your neighbor pretty quick trying to turn. Same thing with like a tennis club, it's a permitted use, but the size of the lot makes it pretty highly unlikely, because you just don't have enough real estate for what, somebody would want if they went to a tennis club and, wanted to sit, engage in sports, but there are some of those things that, occasionally you see. Reception halls, which was what you're hearing, are permitted use, indoor recreational facility, so like we had one of those in Rossville get approved, like if, somebody was gonna have like a weightlifting facility that you would key card into, to work out, that kind of thing. Your heavy industrial uses are all prohibited or special exception in the case of supportive things like a parking lot or a office that's adjacent to an industrial site.
All right, thank you. Anyone else like to say anything before we move the discussion to the board?
If I may, I'd like to say something. This is my wife, Chrissy, and this is all her idea. So first of all, I want to thank you guys so much for the opportunity to be here tonight and taking your time out of your busy schedule. Even you, young lady, for coming and voicing your concerns, because ultimately, at the end of the day, I believe what our goal is to bring this building back to its beauty, add some value to the community. I believe what she has in mind is a phenomenal idea. I believe it'd be great for the community. I believe that particular area is going to be growing like crazy over the next few years. So the big reason for me coming before you guys, I just want to give you my thoughts of the building and the beauty of the building. I just truly believe in my heart, based off of what we've discussed, for the community and for that building, this is just an exceptional idea that I think is just going to add a tremendous amount of value to the community. And but the biggest thing from my heart is I want to be sensitive to the community. That is our ultimate goal. We don't want to do anything that offends anybody or creates any problems or would be anything that would be, uncomfortable for anybody. So I appreciate your concern, and we want to meet those needs for the people of the community. And so I think we can do that. I think we can all work together. I think it takes a community of support to get this thing going. And I think that we are the group or the team that can make this building absolutely gorgeous. It is absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, the staple of this community. I'm not even talking about the downtown part. I'm talking about the whole entire community. This building is exceptional. The beauty that this building is going to bring to the community is going to be the biggest wow factor you've ever seen in your life. So if the parking is a concern or these types of things are a concern, I can tell you now that my wife is diligently working to work these things out, not only for our sake, but for the community's sake also. So we want to do our best. We want to bring beauty to the community, and we want to serve our community. And that's the gist of where we're at with everything. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Last call? All right, thank you. All right, at this time, we'll turn the discussion over to the board. And for new members, the one thing I would like you to pay particular regard to is under your last page, request analysis, there are 5 criteria there that this board should pay reasonable regard to. Those are the things we really want to look at when making a rezone decision. So with that being said, I'll open it up for discussion.
Well, I think it sounds like a good idea. Even the folks that are concerned about the parking mentioned that they like the idea of this building being rehabbed and brought back to life. I think the work's probably not over with in terms of that parking and answers to all those safety and privacy questions. But that maybe is not exactly our job anyway, more the job of the Kirkland Town Council. And in order for this to move forward, so the town council can do their job, I think we should favorably certify this to the town board and let them know that we've heard these concerns and ask them to be mindful of that when they give it their consideration.
Anyone else like to speak? As I understand it right now, short of the alcohol issue, this could go back to being a church immediately. Is that correct?
It could, it absolutely could.
So you'd still have the parking issues, things like
I
that?
have no idea how it would work out, but technically, if a church somehow showed, well, some churches serve alcohol as communion wine, like, technically, I mean, it sounds funny, but if a church had a permit to serve alcohol, and they could show how it was accessory to their primary use, I'm not sure we could stop them. But certainly, they could, a church could show back up and
Would
re-enter
it
that,
still have the
use it
same
tomorrow,
rough
and-
occupancy that you're gonna see
Yeah,
here
it would have the
probably?
same occupancy, and the parking would go somewhere, but there would be no way to prevent a church from,
I've heard tell of churches serving other things besides alcohol.
as alcohol.
Yeah. It's true.
But I guess the point is, it's very, because of the freedom of religion rules, which are very much important and part of our culture, not criticizing the fact that there's rules guarding people's freedom to express their religion in the way that they like, but because of them, churches are an area that is difficult to regulate unless you can connect the problem directly to a drainage problem or a fire hazard or something that's very directly related to safety. Otherwise, if it's within their practice of religion, you pretty well have to work with that. We did actually, it's been since the 1980s, but we actually lost a court case trying to stop a church in our community back a few years. We were one of numerous jurisdictions that were trying to do that in the same, exploring how where the balance is between land use and religious rights. But we, like many other communities, discovered that's an area you have to tread really carefully in.
All right, thank you. Back to the board, is there a motion? Anybody like to, one way or the other?
Yes, absolutely.
I'll make a motion to favorably certify it to the Kirkland Town Board. Is that the right way to say it?
Second.
We have a
Clark
motion
and Mike.
Second. Roll call vote when you're ready.
Dan Sheets,
Yes.
Clark Beard,
Yes.
Walt Minnick,
Yes.
Mike Emmons,
Yes.
Grant Muller.
Yes.
Okay, so it's 5-0, so we will put together paperwork to get to the town clerk for the town board to hear. We'll take that down, and we will also make sure that as staff, we convey that there were concerns on both parking and alcohol brought up at our meeting, and our board in particular wanted to pass on to the Kirkland Town Board that the parking concern is something that the town board should examine.
Yes.
And it's important for you folks to remember, this is not the last step.
You need to
No,
go to the town
Kirkland will
board
have the
meeting.
final say.
That's right.
I anticipate I'll have that
Okay.
packet ready. Their meeting's next Monday,
That blows my mind.
So we'll try to get that done this week and down to them.
so we'll be at their meeting next Monday for the presentation of that, okay?
All right, that concludes this hearing. Is there any new business? Say no.
Sorry. Not to be the bearer of bad news, but I do have one item that I need to at least throw out for conversation. I don't think it's anything we need to make a decision on tonight, but it's something that I'm working on. So if you will recall, we had a couple meetings that we didn't meet because we didn't have any cases filed, and the budget cycle fell across that. And I emailed out the proposed budget, and everyone was in support of that, so I submitted it in a timely fashion to the auditor and to county council. One of the things that county council has asked of all of the departments that are funded through the county funds is that we look at, as they struggle with how to handle what's happening economically, the departments either look at 10% cuts or 10% increases, either on revenue or on spending. They haven't made that an absolute requirement, it's something that they're asking. And we, like many small departments, I think Dan would say the same with the surveyor's office, there's not a lot you can cut because you're already very, very small. We're not buying 20 dump trucks a year, there's just not much that we can cut out. So, what we told county council we would consider is, whether some increases to our fees were appropriate. We were looking at, at least a 10% increase as a starting point for conversation across the board. But one of the things that you always do when you look at an increase or a change, and we have not done an across the board one in probably a decade, is you do a fee comparison. So what I have for you guys tonight that I'm gonna send with you, and I'll tell you, I'm gonna clean it up a little bit more and I'll email it out as well, but I wanted to at least have some public conversation, so that this doesn't come out of the blue next month when I have a proposed revised fee schedule to discuss. I'm gonna pass these down. So, blast from the past, Mark Mills, actually has been helping us out in the office here recently as we've been short-staffed a couple days a week. So he was kind enough to call around and get people to send us fee schedules. We are, as we have always been, the lowest of pretty much everybody surrounding, and even with an increase, we will still remain the lowest, and that's by intent. When we look at economic development and our package with how we attract business, and also in not wanting to overly burden our own citizens as we work through the process. Our goal has never been to be on the highest or in the middle of the average. But I think with county council's request, an examination of the balance of our fees and trying to get an across-the-board 10% increase. So as an example, currently, our permit fee for a house is $100. So a 10% increase means it would be $110. I live in the jurisdiction, I have to pay those fees. $10 would not stop me from building a new house. So same thing, if you wanna do a room addition, your permit fee is $40. So you're gonna add $4 and be $44. I wouldn't not do my room addition because I paid $4 extra. So now there may be some of these, I'm gonna look at them and I am gonna look at the fee comparison. There may be some of these where I come back to you next month with a proposed revision to the fee schedule and I go, look, I think maybe we should make more than a 10% increase here because we're so far off from everyone else. Right. And this use is such that it makes sense. There may be others, electrical permits come to mind where I'm not really sure I would recommend much of a change because the most common place we see electrical permits are people that are below the average of income for Clinton County, who they take storm damage, something else happens, coming up with $75, the $25 for the permit fee and the $50 for the inspection, when they didn't expect that. And we sometimes have people in tears. It's a major stressor. So that's an area where I go, when people need an electrical permit, many times it's a virtue of a crisis that's occurred, and you're just trying to get them power so they can live. They're not going out and choosing to add $50,000 worth of value to their structure, so that's one where I'm like, I don't know if we increased it maybe only a couple dollars, so when I come back, there may be a little bit where it's not quite even. But I wanted you guys to have this to look through so you can kind of see the comparison. I will send an emailed version out after the fact, and then my intention would be next month to have a proposed revised fee schedule with the changes noted for discussion. Our fee schedule is adopted by reference, so it can be changed by a board vote, but we generally do try to make that a little bit of a process, and not have me just fling it at you and there not being any chance for you to consider it. So I wanted you to have this as a starting point. If we choose to work with county council by doing a fee increase, we would need to have it in place before the end of the year. We might even want to look at making it effective January 1st, however we do it, just because then it rolls neatly over. But certainly we wanted to follow the budget cycle. So if county council is looking at how that income is matching against outflow, they know that that's taken effect. So.
I totally get your point on the electric, where that's coming from, but everybody's got things going. I guess what I'm saying, I know you're trying to tread lightly. I wouldn't be afraid to raise it by 20 or 25%, but that wouldn't stop me from building a house or whatever, but I totally understand if someone's doing, had storm damage or whatever, and now they're not getting socked with an extra charge, for their electrical things.
So the way
Everywhere you go, everything's going
Yeah,
up.
and it is, that's what county council's dealing with, is 8% inflation last year. And I think every one of us as an individual has felt that in our own household budget. Like it doesn't matter whether you have more or less money, everyone's feeling it. It's just some people are feeling it more desperately than others. But the way the process will work is for the sake of time, I'll take this review, look at our fee schedule, and start with some recommendations, based on what county council's asked. And then next month, we'll put it on our agenda for discussion. And then exactly that, if any board member, if you look at it and you go, hey, I think maybe we should shut this down or up, like, then we discuss it, and ultimately the board, it's not my call to say what those fees are. You as a board will decide if what's proposed is appropriate, if it should be tweaked in different ways, and then ultimately adopt whatever those changes are. If you're willing to walk down the path of considering that, it allows me to tell county council with assurance that we are looking at fee adjustments to help make up a net 10% minimum, in terms of our income. And that's the approach that our office is taking, so they can then expect to see more specifics later in the year.
I definitely agree that you shouldn't abide by a cold, hard 10%. This is the opportunity to make adjustments to what's fair and reasonable in today's terms. That's when you make those adjustments. And if something's way too low,
It's the time to
then
bring
it's
it
time
up
to bring
to
it up.
reasonable.
If something is pretty close, then don't increase it as much
Yeah.
or at all.
Exactly.
So even things up, it makes your job easier, let's say 5 or 10 years later,
Absolutely.
when you're updating them again.
You don't have to make such a big jump.
Right.
And a lot's happened in 10 years, and everybody who lives around here would agree that in 10 years, the economy is not exactly what it
Right.
was. Things don't cost exactly what they did. It's the nature of life. So, and certainly the Clark could speak for the fact that the county's bills are not exactly what they were, so it all, like Mike said, it all builds. But other than that, I'm not wanting to take up a ton of time, I just wanted to convey what I anticipated and get your feedback, which I appreciate, and we'll take into account as I prepare that draft, and let you know what to expect. Since we didn't have an opportunity to have an in-depth budget discussion before that got submitted.
I'm looking forward to your final results.
We certainly do appear to be the user-friendly in the fee department compared to other counties, for sure, which is good, Tony.
Dramatically in some cases. Now, I did see some interesting fees in other counties, just for entertainment. I did find one other county that is charging a fee per beehive. So, there's some interesting, I don't think that we need to do that. I don't really wanna go out looking for beehives.
do it by bee.
By bee.
By bee.
I'm gonna wanna hire someone else to go out there and count bees. Dan, you up for counting bees?
No, I'm not counting bees. I'm good with that.
But there are some things on the other side that I am gonna consider that I've seen in other fee schedules. There are some communities that are charging a fee for new addresses as assigned, which does require going out and doing an inspection and measuring. It does have a cost in fuel and in staff time. So that's one I'm actually thinking about maybe adding, because it seems like we have more and more of them that we have to run due, and
Everything's got a fuel surcharge on it.
so when there's a direct cost involved, it's just, so there's some things like that you see when you do a fee review that you go, oh, somebody's thought about how to make this balance better, and maybe we should, maybe not at the same rate, but maybe we should also be considering the costs on that and how we keep it balanced.
Anything else under new business?
I don't believe I have anything else.
All right, moving
Motion to
on.
adjourn.
I
Or-
just wanna mention real quick though, sorry.
Wasn't me.
It's real quick, I swear. This room will be closed October 11th through November 7th. The reason why I'm wanting to say this is because we are live streaming. This will not affect October's APC meeting, but would affect November's. So we will probably more likely be out the airport.
Which means no live streaming that month.
Okay.
That's all I have.
All right, our next meeting date is October the 4th, as she mentioned. And I believe I had a motion from the clerk to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
Time
Yeah,
for dinner.
rolls.
Oh, I've been to one.
You gonna see Sweetie?
No, she getting a haircut.
See you down
Okay.
there. Ladies, later.
Takes like 3 hours.